All right, should be live. Going to give everybody time to join. I think Bobby's going to join me in a few minutes talking about the football game tonight. I just got to do some stuff on my end really quick because I am playing the NBA slate as well to see whatever the heck happens tonight. But I need to edit this one thing here. Okay, I got that there. Let me upload this to SaberSim. All right, cool. So we're good there. So obviously, and as I said, Bobby should join me in a moment. I'm not going to show anything on the screen. I'm just gonna be talking through my opinions and everything. Actually, make sure that we're live and working with audio and everything like that, which we should be good on here. Okay, yeah. So we're all good there. Good to go. Okay, so as we look at the game tonight, obviously, and I'm moving with the expectation that Amara doesn't play, which I believe he's still. Let me see. He's projected out with both SaberSim and our projections, so nothing really changes there. I don't know if it's been made aware, or I'm assuming it doesn't even matter. I mean, he's not playing, right? So obviously, we get to a situation to where Detroit has now underpriced players, specifically Williams and Kennedy and everything, but really from a whole, I mean, you could argue Khalif Raymond, Tesla, whatever, right? But the entirety of Detroit is mispriced now since Amarov is out. When I look at a slate like this, ideally, or I guess the way you would go about it is, you would heavily expect Jameson Williams to do what he did last time, be the center point of the offense. Gibbs getting some passes as well, Tom Kennedy being involved and stuff like that. But we run into a situation in DFS to where I think, from a EV perspective, the lineups that have Williams as a captain and the lineups that potentially might have Kennedy as a captain could be pretty heavily duplicated. Now, are they likely to win? I think there's quite a lot of lineups that are going to perform well with Jameson Williams captain. Same thing with Kennedy or whatever. And even if they're not, the ownership on Williams is going to be, from both captain and flex perspective, Williams is going to be pretty high. Same thing with Kennedy and whatever, right? From my approach, if we're going to get a pretty low, I believe Bobby might be here. I'm not.
Hey, what's up, man?
Yeah. Hey, what's going on, Bobby? I'm just kind of going through on how people are expected to have a lot of Jameson and a lot of Kennedy tonight. And I was about to say that when I see an opportunity to potentially have leverage on a field, I think I'm gonna try and get as much CD Lamb and Pickens in the captain as possible tonight, because I should still be able to afford them actually easier now, with Detroit being mispriced. A lot of guys under what they should be, and the fact that we're going to potentially lose captain ownership to Lamb and Pickens, just due to everybody using Williams. I like, if CD Lamb is at near 10, 11, 12, 13% captain ownership, I mean, I think that's a great place to jump on.
Yeah. I think both CD and Pickens should be in that, like, somewhere just a barely double digits captain ownership. I'm good with all of it. I like the Detroit. I mean, I think that I don't think this is anything revolutionary, but I like the Detroit running game, Dallas passing game. I also think there's a path where Detroit just like beats the hell out of him here. And maybe he just does it with the running game. It's completely possible. I really like Montgomery as like an off the board captain. But I agree getting to Slaw I agree getting to Kennedy and Slaw like as captains, I think makes a lot of sense actually. I think there is enough upside, and I think there's a path where you might need the rest of that money at, like, if Lamb and Pickens both go off. So you get somebody like those guys for cheap, And you've got a chance to get there with the, being able to, use all your money for the Cowboys wide receivers and the running game from Detroit. That's what I like.
Yeah, I think Gibbs and Montgomery are probably going to be used, or at least not used, but I think from a fantasy perspective, obviously if you have Williams as probably expected to be the highest scorer on Detroit, and then probably Gibbs and Montgomery as
No. Gibbs by a long shot. It's not even close.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's like 8 to 10 points ahead.
Interesting.
Gibbs will be by far the highest projected player, and I love Jameis. Everybody didn't know Jameson. But I also do think there's a very clear potential bust path here.
Would you play Gibbs in the captain then, like this?
He's going to be the chalkiest one. So yeah, I will do some of it because I think this could be a good spot. But I think it's another great example to get to, like, what if Gibbs, does his 150 yards, 5 catches for whatever, but David Montgomery has 2 rushing touchdowns and maybe a catching or passing touchdown. He's thrown for 1. He's attempted it a few times. All of that's on the table. So I think that Detroit's going to win this game. I'm interested to see how their offense runs, but I just think against this Dallas defense, I know they've been so much better the last couple of weeks. I just still think Detroit could put a beat down here. And I want to sort of try to let my lineups reflect it, but I'm not, other than playing more Detroit defense than the field and more, maybe even more of, I don't like the Detroit kicking game in general, but I just think being overweight to Detroit players versus Dallas is definitely the way I'm leaning, with going to guys like having double Lamb and Pickens lineups and things like that.
Interesting.
Where do you stand on the like tight end factor here? Because Ferguson, I think, is like the one no one will play, and it is tempting because I think there's upside for him. He's the one who no one's going to captain, and he's kind of expensive, so I don't think he's going to get played that much, as much. He's another one that sort of stuck out to me.
Yeah, I don't think I would play Ferguson the captain. I need to rerun stuff, obviously, just because we're getting closer. But I had Ferguson in like 20% of my lineups. It seems like the guy that I'm going to be lower on, and this is only due to, since Brown is out now, other guys in Detroit are cheaper. Typically, I'd like to have both quarterbacks in a lot of lineups, but it's looking like I'm probably going to be pretty low on Jared Goff. Obviously, if I'm liking Pickens and Lamb, a lot of those are going to have him paired with Dak. But between Gibbs, Kennedy, Montgomery, and stuff, I think Goff is probably the guy that I would much more prefer to not have a lot of ownership to try and most likely have people who are going to end up scoring higher than him.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I think there's a chance both of his running backs could, but he's got such a high ceiling, and I honestly don't think the ownership's as high on him as it could be. I mean, even the fact that he's like 4% projected as a captain, that I bet it's higher than that in reality, but there's something a little bit appealing about that. You can pair him with his cheap receivers easily, and there is definitely a path where he could get there. Also, he can run the ball occasionally, and he has he'll catch a touchdown pass every year, or so. They run weird plays, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something weird like that. So I like the idea of having maybe a little more Goff exposure at captain than the field. I probably am going to end up underweight Gibbs, Jameson as captains, just because I have to, make some concessions. And I think I'm just going to be overweight these other, mostly receiver plays. But then I think I like the Goff idea a little more than the Dak idea, just because of ownership. And other one I wanted to bring up, there is what's his name? Malik Davis. I think it's interesting that he's not getting played at all. Now, do we need the savings? If Amon-Ra was playing tonight, like, you'd see a guy like him, I think people would have to spend way down to speculate. I don't know if you necessarily need to. In fact, I think it's probably worthwhile if you're playing like a couple hundred lineups to lower your minimum salary on a day like today, in my opinion. But if you do end up needing all of everything and there's somebody who has some upside, I think Malik Davis is a pretty interesting, just as a flex play. This is just a guy that no one's playing and is the backup running back. Did have, a touchdown last week. He's been getting a little bit more involved in the offense. We're talking about 4 or 5 touches, but there's a chance that one of those could easily be in the end zone, and he's 1,400 and no one's playing him. Sort of like the play I mentioned the other night with the you're hoping for a couple of big things, but for him he just needs anything. But the play from New England that I ended up getting right, and I still couldn't quite win big on the slate, Kyle Williams. But I could see Malik Davis being like the scoring a touchdown. He's like the only guy at that, other than people are all going to play Kennedy, and that's obviously the more logical play. But I think you could play both those guys even, and I just think there's a path where you could get there. I also think Kavonte Turpin is another viable in the flex to at least be over the field, because I think they're going to be really, really forgotten about, both those guys, and they're cheap. And if you do want to play a Dak or a CD or a Pickens captain, having a guy like that can be beneficial, and you could actually get away with having 2, with Kennedy being one, and then one of these guys being your cheap options. You don't think about that stuff in general as much, the lower end guys, right?
I mean, I just usually end up getting to them. Like, you brought up Turpin as you were talking. I'm just looking through. I have him 15% of my lines. I'm only playing 60 today, but like I have him. Who was the you mentioned the running back? Let me just check really fast for Dallas, the 1800
guy. Malik Davis.
Let me see if I have. I don't have any of him.
Yeah, I don't think you get to him.
I don't think, at least from the way I build, like, if I step back from the slate, Amara really doesn't. I guess he changes the slate for me from, like, it narrows down who I would like be underweight on, but typically, like, I'm not going to share the actual percentages of the captains that I'm using here, just because we're live or whatever. But like, currently, I have 90% Kennedy, 80% Gibbs, 63% Jameson Williams, 61% Dak. Like, I'm getting everybody that I would want, and over the field, at least in the flex, on these guys. But I feel like, since people aren't paying up at captain, or at least from what it seems like today, outside of Gibbs, but I'm not playing Gibbs in the captain. Like, this slate really doesn't change for me. It just takes Amara out, which usually I have to choose some guy up top that I'm going to be underweight on anyway. I kind of really like this slate from a Dallas perspective, especially if people aren't going to be as heavy on them. Like, I personally think Dallas keeps this.
I don't think people are any lower on them than they. I see what you're saying, because you think, but like, these guys are. I mean, CeeDee Lamb's going to be every bit as owned as, and probably Pickens too, as much as Jameson Williams. Pretty close, at least. So I don't think you're getting a discount in ownership by playing any of the Dallas stuff. I actually think Dallas is the, it's pretty close. It's pretty actually split down the middle between where the ownership is. But I think Jameson Williams will be similarly owned to both CD and Pickens, maybe a little bit higher owned. I don't think it's going to be a huge gap, though. But I mean, maybe you're looking at something else, because I'm looking at the numbers I'm looking at. That's what I'm seeing.
Just like what would, and I mean, I'm like, I don't really care what way. I'm not passionate about this conversation. I don't want anybody watching or you to feel like I'm arguing. This is more so.
Oh, no, argue. I think that's what we should do. We should.
Like, what if let's say if Amara was playing, right? You'd probably have Gibbs at, like, I don't know, 18% ownership. Lamb probably in the range of like 15, Amara maybe around 10, Jameson around 8. Yeah, like if Amara was playing.
If Amara was playing, Jameson Williams would be like 3% owned.
Yeah. So
actually, at this price, he'd be like 1% owned.
Yeah. So
he's priced up because there's no Amara.
But from my perspective, that means, like, people or lineups rather, are going to Williams versus, like, who would they be coming from. Obviously people are priced around him or anybody
What do
or
you
any
mean?
lineups that would have Brown in it. But I think that pulls ownership away from Lamb and Pickens to a pretty significant.
No, you'd think
Ratio.
maybe theoretically, but no ownership that you find is going to tell you the same thing. And there's a reason for it. CeeDee Lamb and Pickens can both get there easily, and Jameson will have times where they don't get him, that they're not able to get him the ball as much as they want. Now, I unfortunately love him in this matchup, and I think it's like he'll be like, it's just, I'm gonna have to be underweight some things because of the ownership, and so I'll take a little bit of an underweight stance on Jameson, but I don't think that you're getting. I mean, I'm looking at almost the same exact ownership between he and Lamb and Pickens, and they're both more expensive. So if you really think that, I mean, it depends on which way you want to go with it. If you like it from a Dallas perspective, that's cool. But just know that you're not. I don't think it's a way to get different. I do think, like, for me, I'm going to be underweight Javonte Williams for sure. I would much rather play the pass catchers that we talked about. But yeah, that's, and I'm probably going to end up slightly under on Jameson, even though I'm going to have some, because I just don't want to get into that much chalk and, on a slate like this.
You play, I mean, of course you play. You think in your high dollar stuff, you got to worry about just Williams and Kennedy lineups more than normal?
I'm okay with. I mean, I'm gonna have exposure to both of them. The harder thing is the Kennedy price is like makes it tough. But I think maybe being overweight to Slaw and then maybe taking some shots on the other guys. It's not like Kennedy. Like, there's a path where he doesn't catch the ball. Like, you know what I mean? This is not like we just saw him get some work last week in a situation where they needed to throw the ball being down. And he had his 4 catches during that period of time. I'm not 100% sure that, like, I mean, I'll wait to see if he's active, but like Dominic Lovett, the other receiver, it wouldn't be completely shocking if he ended up getting some of the run too. You know what I mean? Instead of Kennedy, and he's an $800 play. That's like one of those, because I'm playing, I'll get 1% of them, minimum. Probably end up with like 1.5%. But I like trying to do that on these slates because I've just seen it win too many times on these showdowns. You know what I mean? It's happened with, who was the one with the Raven last year? Was it? God, I'm trying to think. I'm losing the name, but that guy was 200 and he was 0.1% owned in the flex, and he had 27 fantasy points, and he, something like that. He had 2 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns or something ridiculous. But like, anyway, I'm just sort of throwing out that these weird, like, little funky plays when we really don't know what Detroit's going to do, because it's a short week. Kennedy thing is logical, but yeah, I mean, I actually think that he's being I think his ownership's going to be much higher than I think people are projecting.
I think from a build perspective, I personally hate Kennedy as a captain tonight. I don't, because pricing isn't as tight as it would be if Brown was playing. I just don't see really any reason why you should play Kennedy in the captain. I just think, if you want to pay up for Gibbs or whoever up top, I think you could very easily afford to do that. I think Kennedy makes way more sense in the flex than being used as a captain today. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of just I'm thinking more of this slate from like a dupe perspective. Like, I just feel like you have, at least from like a Lamb, Pickens. I mean, hell, I haven't looked at the Gibbs lineups yet. I mean, maybe I can do that, but I just feel like you're like the Kennedy lineups. Like, nobody would be playing that if Brown wasn't playing. I think those lineups have very little actual upside to be optimal. I'm sure they'll be fighting to cash, but I don't think they're going to be fighting to be optimal. So you're removing a percentage of the field from potentially having an optimal lineup. Because you're doing that, and obviously on top of all the bad lineups that are normally played, like, I think dupes are going to be lower than normal here. I think maybe that's why I'm more inclined to pay up for guys on the slate, because I just think the amount of lineups that will be played there with like 1v1s at the bottom are going to be not as highly owned. But I'm going through my stuff really fast, and you mentioned playing less salary. Um, Today, I think that's probably a must. At least lower your max salary by like 300 to 400 or something, because I'm not seeing anything uh, using all of my salary
Mhm.
on this slate. Uh,
Yeah,
and I'm paying up for people
I
that
think
that's why I don't really like playing Kennedy as a captain. I don't need that salary savings, and I don't need the salary savings that Williams get me on top of the
Mhm.
increased ownership that he has.
It's a fair point. I think there's just enough spend ups to do it. I mean, you're going to end up with a lot of similar builds, but it would end up with you play Kennedy, then you play Dak, the CD, and Pickens, and then you pick like Jameson or whatever, and then you have one more.
Yeah, I looked at it. A lot of them came down to to a kicker or
Yeah.
a lot of the 5K, not yeah 5K guys, because the ones that I was looking at was like right at like 5,800 left, 6,000 whatever. In situations like that, let me look at it right now. Let me look. So you have like Aubrey Bates, Isaac Lyons defense, like that's from 36 to 54. Like I don't really see anything in that $2,000 range between 3,400 and 5,400 that is worth having Kennedy as a captain. We're
Yeah.
just move Kennedy down to flex and pay up for captain, and then you go from arguing against Aubrey and Bates at 54 and 5,000. I also want to add the kickers are more expensive now than they were in the start of the year. They're in the mid fives now, right under backup quarterbacks, so they're not as like just the free square as they were earlier in the year. But I don't.
Well, it's also the kickers you're talking about. These guys tend to kick a little more because their offenses are high power offenses, and Aubrey's the best kicker in football.
Mhm.
Uh,
I was gonna say is like a last man in for those Kennedy lines. A reason why I'm not a big fan is you're going from fighting from Aubrey or Bates, whatever, to play a defense, or then you're like at Kennedy, Turpin, Mike Davis, whatever, right?
mhm.
Um, Even Schoonmaker, Tolbert, whatever. Like I would just rather have that as my one off with 5 expensive guys and then Kennedy in the line than have Kennedy in a flex.
Mm-hmm.
For that reason here.
Yeah. I get the thinking that's certainly very logical.
It's kind of like the and now granted I had like one lineup carry me entirely on Monday, but it's kind of the same reason why I thought what's his name? Quarterback for the Giants was a good play.
Jackson Dart.
Yeah, Jackson, because I just thought he'd be lower owned compared to what he realistically should be.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know, just my thought process.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I just reran my things. I still am getting Jameson a lot at the captain, which I think I'm probably going to cap at 20. Like I'm just going to cap at 20, which means I'll get less than that. But I mean, I'm going to obviously rebuild these things after and everything. I'm also going to be playing I am taking more chances with weird plays tonight because I think there's so many Detroit's missing so much from the passing game that it either all goes to Gibbs, Williams, but it could easily be Tisla. I like being overweight all basically the Detroit receiving options, including Ferkser and what's his name, Ferkser and Ross Dwelly.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we will see them run a lot, like they run plays for tight ends, for backup tight ends even. So I want to take some shots. And I don't think that I think this is a good score. I mean, these are good scoring teams, obviously, and they've had like a full week. It's not a normal Thursday. But personally, I like the idea of trying to be overweight the Detroit passing game as what I think is actually the way to be different, because I actually think Jared Goff is the guy who's way lower owned than he normally would be.
Let me look at these golf lineups really fast and give my opinion really quick.
What's the golf lineups?
Or I mean, just seeing how easy it is to stack his
golf.
offense.
I think you were talking about I think you said golf. I thought there was.
Oh no.
He's always talking about a different thing.
No, I just want to. I usually go ahead and see how easy it is to build. Because in my opinion, if you're playing a quarterback, they pretty much need to be 5-1s in favor of that quarterback. Now that's just my own opinion. Um, at least 4-2s, like, but like today, if you do golf, majority of the offense, you're going to be anywhere probably from 85 to 96 with Lamb, whoever you want.
Mhm.
Um, I think in smaller contests that's probably viable. I don't know how viable that is in the 20, just because you're probably going to be missing out on a good portion of the Dallas offense. And if Dallas keeps this anything close, or like I think Dallas wins this game.
Oh wow,
I don't know if you're gonna. Yeah, I like Dallas tonight
I'm on Detroit tonight,
yeah.
but I hear you. And obviously Dallas has been playing well, but I think this would be interesting.
Mm.
I would not be surprised. Like I certainly can see a Dallas, I guess, winning, but I can see a Detroit beatdown very easily. Um, and I don't think it's like, I really feel like if this game was played 2 weeks ago, Detroit would be favored by like 8, 9, 10 points
Mm-hmm.
at least. We're going a lot off recency and strange matchups, and Detroit just happens to match up terribly with Green Bay, and then they're Philly and Green Bay are the teams that I think will match up with the worst. I have a feeling they'll be able to move the ball here with Gibbs, with Montgomery, with Goff. I just think I'm overweight the Detroit side in general. That's just where I'm leaning.
Gotcha.
But even that could work even if they don't play well.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it's going to be harder for Dallas to run the ball, and I think it's going to be easy for Detroit to run the ball, or at least move the ball with the running backs, even if it's little screen passes and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll see Montgomery and Gibbs out there a lot together today.
This is a dumb question. Do you know if Williams had a big ADOT last week or not? We're like
He had all kinds of things. Yeah, I watched every play, so he had all kinds of play. They'll run little slants for him and try and get him in the open field. They'll run reverses for him. They'll run bomb plays for him, and then they'll try and use him in the midfield. He'll run every type of route without St. Brown around.
Okay, all right. Just kind of curious.
But you can really run the ball on Dallas. Like, this is one of the worst defenses run defenses in football, and this is the best running offense in football. So, the fact that more people aren't locking into that, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, obviously everybody's going to play Gibbs, but I mean, like, I think Montgomery is a really, really good tournament play, and I think he's actually a really good captain. I think it's totally possible that he's the highest scoring player in this game, which sounds crazy, but it's true. I'm not saying it's going to happen most of the time, but again, if you give me his ownership, I'll take it.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to use. Okay, I'm just going to use the Dallas captains and just be overweight in the flex on literally everybody else in the slate.
Nice, that's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I mean, even right now, I have 16% Lions defense and 3% Dallas defense. Normally, I kind of X those guys out, but I'll keep them both in.
Yeah, I think both are totally viable tonight.
Yeah.
I love the idea of, like, we've seen a plenty of defenses beyond a lot of these winning things. You get that one play, and then whatever else happens in the game, it almost doesn't even matter. And it happens too often. We've seen so many defensive touchdowns this year.
Yeah,
you don't necessarily need a defensive touchdown. But we've seen a ton of them. And you got quarterbacks that are willing to take gambles, especially given how many, just how different Detroit is without Sam Brown and Laporta.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really viable to play those defenses. I'm with you.
Cool. Are you playing NBA tonight or no?
No.
Okay.
I think it's too late. It's too slow to update the things, and the projections are completely out of whack lately with the ownership. And I think that there's something that I want to see what gets fixed. Every night that I hand build and I try to put that same what I want to do, every hand build works. Every one that I play of these, I lose. So I'm gonna try and go back to the drawing board and talk to the guys at Sabersim and just get like some updates on it, because it's been really hard, no question. With those, like yesterday was just a barrage of stuff, but some of the projections, like on some of these guys after two sets of games had locked, like to think think that Demon was going to be 40+% owned in any format. It's just like bizarre, and I couldn't figure it out. And then they also had his projection like 4 points higher than anybody else, or 5 points higher than any other set. Actually, I think it was. And I'm like, that's for a guy who's that cheap, that's crazy. So I don't know. And then of course, my sneaky guy that I wanted exposure to was Giannis, who somehow got hurt or didn't get hurt and just left the game in the freaking 3 minutes in.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm gonna play tonight, just because I haven't been completely wiped on NBA. I've had like disastrous slates. I get like, I'll have like I'll get 50% of my entries back, and that's good enough to keep playing, right?
Yeah.
But especially tonight, because all the games are at like 6 outside of 1, so I don't have to be paying that much attention. At least on the early slate or whatever, and it's 5 games. I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's been pretty rough. Especially what pisses me off is that, like, I've been late swapping like all these slates that I've been playing.
Yeah.
And it's still just been a disaster. Like, I've been there, I have my alarms, I check every 15 or every 15, 20 minutes and stuff, update stuff, 5 minutes before the next game's log, and it's still been a freaking disaster. Like, that pisses me off almost more than if I just abandoned the slate at the start and didn't change anything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's really annoying. It's just, but I'm telling you, there's been things that I've caught on to, and that's helped me win at times this season. And what I'll do is I'll run them, and then I'll upload them, and then I'll change my bigger ones by hand. But occasionally there'll be a guy who gets thrown out there that I like. But mostly it's been a little bit of a rocky season, I would say, that for a lot of people. It's tough.
Yeah. No, it is. I got those 2 wins out of the way early, and like I doubt I'm gonna piss away 30 grand on NBA this year. But like that's a huge safety net. But I haven't won anything since that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been killing NFL and stuff, but kind of your opinion on basketball is how I feel about NASCAR. I'm really assessing what I want to do next year. With the volume that I was throwing at that, I don't know, on top of everything else,
right?
The taxes and stuff. I've been trying to figure out what exactly I want to do. So I'm just kind of focusing on this NFL stuff for now.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to playing NBA and stuff, but I need a breather. And also that 4 times moving down from second to third was instant, which I knew was going to happen. Then third to fourth an hour and a half later. Then 2.5 hours later, going fourth to sixth. I was just like, "Fuck you!" You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that one's
and take what could have been 20 or 50, and then it's the overtime that I needed. I literally ended up, I would have finished fourth if not for the overtime. So that was frustrating. Like, it just was annoying. And I swear, everybody can talk about the stat corrections. I don't remember after a slate one that really benefited me. I really don't. I remember some that benefited me a little bit. I remember 500 that I've dropped. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah, and it's always I always struggle to figure out exactly what changed too.
Yeah.
Like who.
I figured it out on this one. I actually did the research just because I was pissed.
Which one was it?
There was so there was 7.25 points is an insane number to drop after lock. You know what I mean? 7.25. Sadiq Bey got discredited from a block and a steal, which I didn't see the play enough to know, but he did get discredited for a rebound earlier, right? That was the one that took me from second to third. And that was that one looked legit to me because I was actually watching that game at the time. But the steal and the block were like in the first half. Or like the third quarter and the second quarter. So, and then the other one was Jared McCain lost 2 rebounds, which I don't know how he lost 2, which is a really weird one. And that was the 2.5 hours after. And that game had been over for like 4 hours by that. That was the first game. So I just was like, all right, whatever. It's, if it was for like a million, I would go back and look at every play and write it in. But it just, I'm not even saying that they were wrong. It's annoying that it's done like that, Yeah,
it's weird that it took that long after.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen much.
They had a big one in baseball there was a showdown, and it was $50K for first in the playoffs. It was one of the bigger baseball showdowns that you get usually. And I literally hand built one lineup, and Cody Bellinger made an error in center field that scored 3 runs, and it went as a triple instead of it being an error that should have ended the inning and all being unearned runs. And they called it a hit. And then literally that night, after like maybe an hour after they paid out, which I ended up 5th instead of 1st for like 1K, it was, and they changed it it said it was changed it to an error, and all the stats changed, and I would have like won by a ton in a showdown, which is crazy. Anyway, that was really frustrating. It was done right after they paid it out.
What is, and if you gotta go, we can go. We can
no, it's cool.
Bullshit and killing time. Or I'm just here, just waiting for for NBA to get closer or whatever. I got nothing to do for half an hour. What is your opinion on like stat corrections? Because I'll go. At least I'll share my opinions first. I guess for stick and ball sports, it's different. But like NASCAR and F1, their official, finishing order and stuff can come out the next day, after they tear down the cars or whatever. Like, and I've benefited from both stat corrections and not enough to where it's like,
okay, that's good.
It just happens. Like I understand that's just part of the game. I think for sports, like, because you can go back and watch the footage and stuff. I mean, I'll bitch about it, but I don't get super annoyed. But like F1, a lot of times this year, it'll be like 12 hours post the end of the race and like 8 hours post lock, someone will be DQ'd or whatever. And a lot of people will, I mean, understandably be like super pissed, due to bets not settling, or, if this didn't pay out, they would have won a GVP or whatever. But I'm like, as long as it doesn't take like 12 hours to pay out the slate, I'm usually okay with stat corrections. I just don't want to sit here like FanDuel does sometimes, where they don't pay out a slate for like 2 days for NASCAR waiting for something. Like,
yeah, no, that's crazy. But I mean, this is like, I mean, look, they're frustrating things, but I just would rather them get it right. I guess that's the main thing. The weird part is just that some of the ways that, certain things will be ruled, and especially in the NBA, because it's not clear who got a rebound a lot of the time. It could easily go to either guy sometimes.
yeah.
And some of them are very, very frustrating, because you could probably argue either side of it most of the time, but some of the times it seems pretty clearly like it should go one way. That's the old football thing too, with the catches in the end. This is the one that always drove me crazy. The catches that weren't ruled catches. Like, I mean, they're ridiculous. A guy's on his way up, spikes the ball after making a big play and running for 20 yards and a touchdown, and or not 20, but a couple yards and a touchdown. It's just like, let's just trust our eyes instead of these bullshit calls, like these bullshit rules that just really, we can all see what the play was. Those are the ones that really annoy me, but those are not so much as stat corrections. They're more just with like official rulings that I don't think make sense.
No, I gotcha.
I think I'm getting a little bit of this Aubrey, by the way, tonight, and I like it. I like Brendan Aubrey.
Let me see. I got him at 20. I got Bates at 11.
Yeah, I think you definitely want him usually more than Bates, because we know Detroit. Well, I don't know. At some point, maybe it's going to change, but they do not want to kick field goals. They are now 0 for their last 7 on fourth downs, and almost none of them were necessary. So if they keep doing that, it's just harder for the kicker, in my opinion. Whereas Aubrey, they will, they'll go 4th and 2 a lot of the time and whatnot, but they're going to let Aubrey take shots at long field goals too, and he's got a huge leg.
The last time, it's probably by the sheer volume that the Cowboys and Bills are on like showdowns and stuff, but those just happen to be my 2 best teams this year whenever they're on showdown and stuff.
Yeah.
But the last time the Cowboys were on a showdown, I had a unique lineup with Aubrey, and this one they were down, or maybe they were up. I don't remember. I needed Cowboys to kick a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were up, but they weren't running the clock down like with like 2 minutes left. Like they kept running plays, and then ran the like kneeled with like 8 seconds left, whereas like they didn't, like they had the game locked up with like 2 minutes left in the game, but Dak wasn't kneeling it.
Oh
So I
yeah.
thought they were gonna like, I guess like, okay, fuck it, they're playing like they're gonna kick Aubrey, like I guess they're just gonna
Oh yeah.
give them another field goal or whatever, and then they kneeled with like 8 seconds left or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
That's irritating.
yeah, that was pretty brutal. Yeah, I don't really have anything else. I think
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I'm gonna head out. Sounds good. Good luck tonight.
Yeah.
Good luck,
Same to
everyone,
you.
and I'll figure out my stuff and get my exposures over in Discord.
Yep. See you guys.
All right,
See you later.